morning. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. Episode 82. And today I'm going to be talking about charging fees. You're either charging fees or you've been contemplating charging fees or you tried it before and maybe it hasn't worked yet for you. But, it's like the more we talk about it, the better it goes and the more ideas you get. So I want to share with you, I charged fees back in the day before I sold my practice. I started charging fees. It was quite a learning curve. And I've obviously worked with a lot of advisors since then. I've interviewed a lot of people who's charging fees on Propulsion on the podcast. There's some episodes where I speak to people who, specifically like Arne Burger, I spoke with him exactly, like he shared everything about how he goes about charging fees, and he has a very unique way of doing it. So getting all these different ideas and different perspectives, I think is fantastic, and that is really the idea. So I wanted to share some of my ideas with you this morning, and things that I have experienced. So and then obviously open for some input from you, and you're more than welcome to share that. We're going to talk about a whole host of things, as you saw in the WhatsApp this morning. So I want to get into it. Before we do, let me quickly make just a couple of announcements. So first of all, Friday's guest, we've got Michelle Hoskins. I'm going to send out all the details about that tomorrow, maybe possibly today. I'll see, but I've got a very busy day ahead of me, so it'll probably be tomorrow morning. And she is all about client experience and a whole host of other stuff that we're going to talk about. I'll announce exactly what the topic is tomorrow and what you can expect. But I can tell you this, that you need to diarize Friday, this coming Friday for 3 p.m. You don't want to miss this one live. She's an extraordinary lady from the UK, and really excited to get into it with her and have a chat about client experience and what she's seen all over the world, and particularly, in the financial advice space. So really excited to get into all of that. Let me just see what all my announcements were. It now escaped me for a second. Oh, the second one is actually a big one. I am very happy to announce that the FPI, the Financial Planning Institute, agreed to be a quarterly guest on the show, and they're going to talk to us about regulatory updates and regulatory changes, and maybe some other aspects that's also applicable. But really excited for that, to have Lelani and David. It'll be either one of them on a show, and I don't know, maybe at some stage I can get them both on. But they'll be doing that for us, and I'm really thankful for that, and I look forward to that. The first update will be soon, hopefully in the next 2 weeks or so. I'm just waiting to confirm dates, but we want to talk about the latest on RDR and a host of other things that we've already spoken about. I'm also looking to get somebody onto the show that can come and talk about the POPI updates, and POPI that comes into effect on the 1st of July, which is extremely important. So there I'm looking to talk to somebody in compliance to sort of get us updated on that as well. So you can also look forward to that one very shortly. And that is my announcements for today. So let's get into it. Let me just say good morning quickly. I see there's quite a few people that's jumped on. We've got, let me see. So I've got Kobus and Terence and Almin. Dani Malan, goeiemorgen, Dani. Very nice to see you. Malcolm, Razan, Tinus, Denise, Kuketsu, Johan Foster, Salome, good morning. Chart, Bronwyn, Jaco Renee, Neil Phillips. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us this morning and for saying hi. I know things are getting back to normal, right? Very quickly. I was in the streets yesterday because I had to go look for some clothes. And not a nice experience, but it was busy. It's getting busier and busier. And I think we're getting to a point where people say, listen, we need to get going again. We just need to be responsible in the way that we do it. But I think things are really going to get going again. I really hope so. I look at businesses that's closed down. I look at friends of mine that's really struggling. It's a fight for all of us. And it's just, I think it's time for us to start doing some business again and get going. So excited about that, to see things are starting to tick over, or hopefully it looks like it wants to start ticking over. But good morning, Arun, Ghadziandi, and Kevin. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's get into today's session. Alrighty, so I obviously want to talk a little bit about charging fees, and to help me with this, I thought I would use. I've done talks about this before, and sort of sharing my experience with people. I've had a session Privé where we talked about this as well, and there was great feedback. So I'm going to use some of those slides, and I've added some new things onto it, as we go through, because also I think when we look at charging fees, we really need to go and look at what can we learn from what others are doing. So other professions, but other businesses and all of that. And I think often there are so many things that we get stuck on when it comes to charging fees. It's how much should I charge? You know, should it be a retainer? Should it be fee-based, but it's actually assets under management? Should it be, you know, what is too much? What is too little? You know, should I still take commission when I do a product sale if I charge the fee for the advice? So there's all these things that sort of holding us back instead of just starting and just going out and trying and doing, seeing what others are doing and coming up with some form of plan and see how it works for you. So I want to talk about some of those things today. Okay, but I want to start off with why I personally believe that clients should be paying fees. And stay with me till the end, because there's some things that I want to share with you around what I actually mean with paying fees as well. But, you know, why I personally believe that clients should do that. Well, first of all, if you really look at the changes, and I saw there were new changes, draft regulations and things published for fit and proper and for the code of conduct and all that good stuff. So I must still read through that. But primarily, if you look at the FASE Act and the way that financial advisors are licensed, what are you being licensed for? I mean, it's very clear. You don't need to read the entire act or the code of conduct or anything like that to really go. Just look at the license categories and see it's long-term insurance, it's retail pension benefits, it's, you know, participatory interests. So these are the kind of things that we are being licensed for, to either give advice or provide intermediary services. And I almost forgot to bring this onto the screen, so let's do that. So if you look at this, if you go onto to the FSCA's website and you go look up your license, and even if you look at your license that was issued to you, you can clearly see that you are licensed to give product advice and intermediary service related to products. So, I mean, that for me is a very clear indication that is not what you are getting. You're not getting paid for financial advice or for doing things outside of product. What we've done over the years, though, and this is just because I think we felt like, and this is just an assumption of mine, but we felt like we had to give more value to justify the commission that we were earning. And therefore, about came the F&A, which is a good thing. I mean, it should be there. We should be based on an analysis, but, you know, that was now free. So we will analyze all your stuff for free, and then we'll show you what you have to buy from us. And unfortunately, where the value really sits has shifted over time. And now we're not charging because we've told everybody that this piece of what we do is for free. So later on, I'm going to look at, like, what are all the things that we can, you know, how do we add value? What are the kind of things that we can maybe look at where we could be implementing fees? Because if we want to say, oh, now I'm just going fee only, and that's not possible for everybody. But if somebody says, I'm going to go fee only and I only charge fees, it's going to be hard with some of your clients that you've trained over so many years that you do that stuff for free. So yeah, but that's one of the things definitely that I think that we need to think about. So yeah, we really advise on product options and implementation, and that's what we focus on. So in my mind, commission is paid for a couple of things. The one thing is, yes, to give advice that's related to the product. So which product, which benefits, the structure, all of that kind of advice is what the commission is paid for. Obviously, the product provider is paying us commission for introducing the client to us and for placing the business with them. So that's the second part. And then also you are getting paid to make sure that policy actually gets onto the books. So in my mind, that is sort of what that is for. That is the main purpose of what commission pays for. And we've spoken about this before. So if you go back to episode 32, I spoke about fee models. Episode 55, we spoke about business models. So those are 2 episodes that you can actually go have a look at as well. But I just think that we really need to look at where's the value, and is there can you sort of make a connection between how you paid, what we're being paid for, and where we're really adding value. But in my mind, this is what it's for. Some of the structures are obviously then also to do ongoing advice and that. So if you look at assets under management, ongoing trail fees, every time the policy is increased, that there's new first year, second year commission, all those kind of things can be so that you look after that policy over the long term. But again, it's about looking after the product. So there's a certain value in that. And sometimes if the value that you get from that commission, if it covers your costs of doing business, if it is sufficient to say, well, I can put all of these things in there, then that's good. But I think what we need to do, and this is for me, like this whole discussion started when RDR came about. I remember in 2013 when I started my practice, it was just the start of all this thing. And I think it was 2014 when we attended all these masthead sessions, and like every company had some sessions that they presented on practice management and going fee-based and changing your whole thing. RDR is not the thing that should make anybody want to go to fees. This is a question of how we run our businesses and what is the business model that underpins what it is that we do, and then the value proposition and the way that we work, the kind of clients we work with. So there's all these different kind of things that we need to consider when we decide, how do we price ourselves? How do we demonstrate our value? And then how do we get paid for it? Those are the kind of things that I think are important. So from my perspective still, and I need to get an update on RDR, but RDR from my perspective is not a case of, you need to go fee-based. No, RDR is about like, we want to build sustainable businesses on good, solid business principles. That is what they're trying to instill through that. And I think that is sort of the view and the attitude and the mindset that we should take on when we are looking at what we're going to do going into the future. Product obviously is only one of the solutions, so therefore there's many other things that needs to be considered. So if you never implement a product, you're not going to get paid for the fantastic work that you've done. Obviously, I mean, this is an old sort of thing that they pay fees for just about everything else. In my podcast with Kate Holmes, I was asking her about her retainer fees and all of that, and she also said, they were paying monthly for a lot of other stuff. Why not financial planning as well? Just put that on there, and it's different from country to country. I'll give you that. I think it's different from province to province in South Africa. But it's just that the way we've positioned ourselves, we made it very difficult to move on to this. So for newer financial advisors and planners, it's much easier to start saying, listen, we charge a fee, because there's no legacy, there's no existing client base, there's no nothing. And I worked with a group of fantastic forward-thinking advisors last year in Cape Town, and there was a clear divide between the older, more settled, and if I say older, I say more experienced, they've got a client base, they've been in the game for a longer time, between their view and the young guys that's come in. They are much more focused on providing the value and things outside of product and charging fees for it versus doing this side. So it's interesting to see this dynamic, because also these younger guys are going to take over once the more experienced advisors move on and they retire or they pass away, or whatever's going to happen, those clients are naturally going to pass on to the younger advisors. And, it's going to be an interesting sort of situation that we need to see what's going to happen there. I think it's important that clients would pay for time, but more so for expertise and advice. And then also, that you are fairly remunerated for what it is that you do. We spend hours and hours and hours of learning, honing our skills. We spend hours and hours of learning from our mistakes, and we want to be better, and we give good service, and we have infrastructure and people and all of that good stuff. So we definitely need to take all of that into account. So for me, as I said, this has got nothing to do with RDR at all. This is about running a proper business and, being remunerated fairly and in line with what it is that you're doing. So what is happening as we speak? Well, there's quite a few things, and some of these logos are a little bit outdated, but that's cool. Well, obviously, the direct insurers, there's more and more direct options. I mean, even some of the companies that some of you support have got all of them, I think, have got direct arms. And that may be that maybe it's not your target client, maybe it's not, but they've got the facility, they've got the opportunity to go direct if they wanted to. Whatever happens, they will always have that direct distribution. And we also spoke about this, where I spoke about the future of financial planning and where I see things going. And we've been saying this for years, that things are moving, the focus is moving away from product. Product is not the value add that it used to be. And the more commoditized it gets, the more clients who want to buy directly via the internet, or, just let a product provider contact them directly. So we really need to look at that. But this has been happening now, I mean, for the last how many years, where there's more ways for clients to deal directly with product providers if they wanted to. So check out the future of financial planning as well, where I spoke more about that. there's more and more tools that's coming available that, you can just pull in all your information. It does an analysis for you and it shows you what's happening to your money, where your money is going. So 20-7 is obviously one that everybody knows about. And you can connect all of your accounts, your bank accounts and everything, and it gives you one picture of what's going on. Liberty has got a program that does that, and there's a few others. So from that point of view, that is happening. So we're putting more power in the hands of the consumer, if you will, to be able to manage and track these things themselves for those that want to. Then this, I always laugh when I look at this little picture, because this is that, churn. She's churning butter, so so that's the only picture I could get to talk about churn. And, for a long time, that was the way that a lot of advisors made money, because every time there's a new product, we go to the latest and greatest, because that's just simply how they position their value. That was it's a conscious decision to say, well, I'm going to add value to my clients through making sure that they always have the latest and the greatest product that they can qualify for. And I always want to make sure that they pay the least amount of money that they can. And there is value in that, absolutely. But the way that things have changed, that this is obviously becoming harder and harder to keep it up like that, to follow that kind of business model. Obviously with TCF, and I saw there was some talk again, I think it was in the week on the weekend, where somebody referred someone, just go look up treating customers fairly, and you can have a look at that. But clients are becoming more informed. They're becoming more like, this is what we want, this is what we need. They are not as uninformed as they used to be. And the other problem is that I think there's a lot of things, if you look at things like robo-advice and just, all the tools that's available, this isn't coming from what the financial services industry is pushing to clients. No, it's not coming from that. Where is it coming from? It's coming from experiences that they have with other businesses that are doing something completely different. If you look at the Ubers and the Airbnbs, always the go-to example, they've changed industries. And when people say, wow, this is how convenient this is, then they start looking for that convenience in other places as well. We were at a discussion on the weekend, and people were talking about Checkers and their 60-minute delivery. I don't even know what it's called, but how they charge extra for it, and they only have certain products. And it's like, that's not what clients and consumers expect. They say, if you want to deliver, then this is what you do. And I can choose whatever I want and you'll come and deliver it. Yes, you'll charge me a fee, that's fine, but I want choice. So those things are all informal. It doesn't come from, because if Checkers was the first one to deliver and they said it takes us 60 minutes and these are the range of products we can deliver, we would have been very, very happy. But when you get used to a Take-A-Lot and you get used to Woolies and you get used to other retailers that actually deliver and you can choose whatever you want, then not so good. And it's the same in our space from that point of view. So clients are pushing more and more towards some kind, like they want some form of control and they want to be in the know. I think often it's not so much that they want to be able to do something, they just want to know whenever they want to know. And some interesting things that we spoke about. And obviously it's getting more and more expensive to run businesses. And I think now during lockdown, where some people have decided, you know what, I'm going to work half the time from here and half the time from there, and maybe reduce my office space. I don't need as much. So there's a way now to save costs. And we realize, like, the amount of time we spend in the car and all that stuff I spoke about before, we now have an opportunity to sort of reduce our costs maybe. But this is a big thing. I've had so many discussions with so many advisors saying, like, I can't keep up. My business sort of, it grows, but it also stays the same kind of thing because there's things that happen. But my costs, that's the one thing. Doesn't matter what's going on in the economy, it goes up. So, these are the kind of things that we need to consider and say, what now? What happens when you hit that point? I've worked with some advisors before that, like, they've done everything almost for their clients. And I know there's always something to do, but suddenly there's no more reason to be selling stuff. So unless they go into retirement and you can now shift your business going from doing life insurance into investments, for example, there's always some challenges in that sense. So what are the challenges when you are moving to a fee-based model? What are the things that you really need to consider? And, the first thing is here that it costs. You don't flick a switch. You don't decide that today I'm done working on commission and today I'm fee only. And we can talk about that as well. Like, there's these different things. There's commission, then there's fee-based. Then there's fee only, and there's sort of hybrid models and things. But I did speak about the different fee models in episode 32, so you can go check it out there. But this is the biggest thing. So your cash flow is going to take a hit. If you were always if you sell a certain amount of policy, that was sort of the commission that was earned. Next year there's another amount, or if it's ongoing, it was very predictable. But if you want to stop that, which is the extreme, which is not what I would do. I'm going to get to what I would do if I were to go fee-based again today. But this is the biggest challenge. So a lot of people just simply cannot afford to go from earning commission to fees. And the question is, should you even go away from commission and move to fees? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily what you have to do. And I'll get to that just now. Obviously, your workflows and your processes and those things will have to change. It will have to be adjusted. Luckily, if you've got this, you don't have to redesign them from scratch and reinvent the wheel or anything like that. But there's got to be changes. There's going to be changes to your paper trail. There's going to be changes to a few things. You've got to issue invoices. You've got to make sure that you get paid. So there's a few extra things that come in. Now, luckily, a lot of that can be automated, but in the beginning, you're not going to think about automation. And sometimes this alone is something that puts people off so much that they don't want to do it. Then the big thing is here that, on the earning the commission side versus the fee side, I think the approach will be a lot different and have to be a lot different. I mean, I've been talking about this for, 7 years. So it's nothing new. It is still the thing where we battle to listen more than we speak. We're so used to telling. Now, this looks like a little bit of an argument, which wasn't the intention. But this is just more sort of to convey the message that, we're so used to the client coming to sit with us and we tell them what to do and what we saw. And obviously that has changed significantly over the last few years as we've become more aware of EQ, and we've become more aware of coaching and leading clients to have their own aha moments and all that good stuff. So this is surely changing, but this is still a challenge for a lot of people. So definitely something that one would need to consider. And then also, how do you really distinguish yourself, and what target market are you going for? Somebody specific that is able and is willing and open to paying fees, or do you still want to focus on your existing clients or the general public and that? So there's a huge mind shift and a challenge for people, because most advisors, when we were taught when we started, I saw this back in 98 when I started. People starting now, they're still being taught the same kind of skills and the same kind of approach, and you've got to contact so many people to do this and do this. So you find yourself at some point where now this is the client base you sit with, and you were not very intentional from day one. There's very few, and you can go speak to people who are very, very successful, and they seem to have everything together. And you will see that they're very clear on who they work with. And they were probably very clear on who they want to work with from the start, or very early on in their career, at least. It is not like they built this massive practice and they've got 1,000 clients and then suddenly they decide, whoa, now I'm going to go specific, because the longer you stay in there, the harder it is to change direction. And I think we also spoke about that in one of the episodes. But anyway, so these are some of the challenges. Obviously, systems. What do you use? What system do you use? How do you make sure that it works for you and not you for the system? So how do you choose? There may be debit orders. You want to do debit orders. Maybe you want to take online payments, credit card payments. You got to do the invoicing, the receipts, statements. These are all kind of things that may be going through your mind and thinking like, oh crap, okay, so what do I need to do? See, that's an old Iris logo. Sorry, Iris. But these are some of the things that one needs to consider around that. And I think the hardest part, and this is where most things fall flat, is that the way that we now demonstrate and explain and position our value. That has been the biggest thing. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. This is something that I'm working on constantly. We're now going through a branding exercise. I'm going to rebrand. We're going to do a lot of stuff and get the message very clear about what it is that we do and where's the line between me and my business. And that's hard for a lot of people to be able to do that. And we want to do it ourselves, but it's very hard to do it yourself. You're too close. You're dancing. You're busy dancing. You need to take time, go stand on the balcony, look down and see what's happening down on the dance floor. And so few of us actually go upstairs and go have a look from the balcony. So, being able to really explain your value and position your value, and often having to maybe adapt and adjust your value to something different. Because the fact of the matter is that something you did for free before, you can't suddenly start to charge for it if you still do everything exactly the same. So that makes it a little bit hard. I think something that's very important and that is very interesting to me is like, if you go and have a look at like, what are the ways that we could create value for clients, and initially when I looked at this whole thing, it was very much around, like the financial planning process. So very much about, when I gather information, that's a valuable input. And then the analysis, and then the advice, and all of that stuff. So you go through all the steps and you go like, there I add value, there I add value. And then you say, well, for this, it's a little bit of value. There's no value. This is a lot of value. So a lot of people will say, oh, the reviewing and the monitoring is where all the value sits. When I implement something, there's value there. So we tend to look at those steps and say, well, that's where we add value. But what I want to talk about in the next slide is like, what are the ways that we can create value? Not in what we do that create value, but what are the different ways where we add value and we give a different flavor and a different experience to the client that they will say, well, I'm willing to pay for that. And I want to give you this example. Again, I spoke about it to somebody on the weekend, is that I went into, and I'll mention the name, Portfolio Metrics. Last year I did some work for them, and I went into their offices in Bryanston's area thereabout. And I went there, and as I walked in, it was this most beautiful reception, like wooden reception desk. I don't know, like, those reception desks, like proper. It felt to me like thick carpets, like the most beautiful paintings against the wall, these big plushy leather couches, and, the smell of leather there. And it's just there were big mirrors there. And then also if you go into the little meeting rooms and the boardrooms, I was just in awe. And my thinking was like, one day today I'm thinking a little bit differently, because I think I realized a few things. But I was standing there and saying, wow, this is amazing. This is something that I want to aspire to. But apart from that, I just realized as I was sitting there waiting for the guy that I had to see, was that you can expect to pay a little bit more here than you'll pay somewhere else. And those kind of things is what you really, want to think about. And you want to make sure that people already expect that things happen. There's ways that you can do that. So let's look at some ways that you can create value. Well, one of the biggest things, I think, and there's so much value in this, and I'm seeing this through the coaching I'm doing. I'm seeing this through the branding exercise, the branding discovery, and things that we're going through at the moment. If you can help someone else to articulate what they want, who they are, where they fit in, all that kind of stuff. If you can help them discover themselves, like really, there is huge amounts, because there's a light that goes on for that person. So there's a lot of value in that. And unfortunately, a lot of times at the beginning, they won't see the value because nobody's done it for them before. But if you're the one that can do this, this can be huge and make a big difference. Education, teaching somebody something new, there's always value in that. I think about the show. We've done, 50, 60, 70% of the time we've been educating and just sharing information and putting some ideas out there. And, there's some people that found a lot of value in that. Other people were like, nice coffee, and there we go. But educate is always one. Helping somebody to make a decision, just often getting to a point where they just make the decision and they go into action and they take action. That is crucial. So that's one thing. Then convenience, to save time. It's, again, as I said before, it's like, how do you make it easy? Kate was talking in her episode, and I've got some friends. I told them, like, this whole thing about like how allowing clients to make appointments in your diary directly through Calendly or whatever is go have a look at what time of the day they actually make those appointments. Not when the appointment will be, but the time that they actually make the appointment. So the time that they're on the site putting in that I want to see you that day, that time. You can see it through the notifications that come in. When is that? I'm going to bet you it's going to be, most of the time it's going to be at night or after hours or on the weekend, that they are busy making the appointment for somewhere in the week with you. So that's one thing. Just make it easy for people to deal with you. And then if you can save them time, I'm very set on time. So if I can save time and not waste a lot of time, then that's going to work very well for me. Then also to create different scenarios. We've recently done work for someone that we created different scenarios and looking at, like, you always have a gut feel that that's the best thing to go for. But this thing, what we did for them, we showed like this is massive if you go down that route. This is the most expensive route, but it by far outweighs any other benefit that you get from the more cheaper ones. And we could demonstrate that and show it to them. So creating scenarios and helping them make a decision based on those is extremely, extremely valuable. Obviously, identifying risks just through your experience. And because remember, I just work with my business. But if you work with many businesses, you see a lot of things and you can see things coming that I maybe am not seeing. So if you can say, whoa, there can be a problem, there can be a risk. And even for your own business, if you're able to do that, I mean, that adds a lot of value. But specifically from a client point of view, is to make them aware, because usually what do? We get so excited about the new car that we want to buy. Whoa, Datsun brought out this new cute little car. They back. I'm so nostalgic about like the 70s and whatever. And then you never like go into you just want to buy a Datsun and you don't go look at it that it doesn't have airbags and ABS and, that kind of stuff. It's that car from the 70s possibly. That's a very simple example. But those are some of the things. Someone else can say, hey, but are you aware that this and this and this is the issue? So identifying risk is definitely a way. Obviously solving a problem, either helping somebody to overcome that problem themselves or sort it out for them. But if you can solve a problem, that's obviously fantastic. And then if you can create an experience, these are the things that people talk about at a birthday party. They talk about it at dinner. They talk about it with their friends. They WhatsApp about it. They just let the world know, when they have a fantastic experience. So there's so much value in that, making it really, really, really nice for someone. And experience can go 100 million different ways. So join us on Friday when I speak to Michelle Hoskins, and we're going to get into a lot more about that. And then to enable and facilitate change or transformation, because often people are afraid to change. And I don't know if I've shared this with you before, but if the pain of not changing isn't greater than the pain of changing, people are not going to change. If it's going to take more effort to change than the benefit of changing, then they're not going to do it. So this is what happened now in lockdown. There were like many advisors said, I'm not technology, I face-to-face and all of this. And then suddenly, for how many weeks they couldn't see any clients. And you know what? They adopted technology. They are using Zoom and Teams to talk to their clients. And this is the feedback I got from one of the big product providers. They said, you know what? When they started with this, I said, no, it's not going to work. And then, lo and behold, this is what's happened. And again, I said to them, yeah, but remember, the pain of staying the same, of not changing, was greater than the pain of changing. So they finally changed. So that's important. But sometimes we also need to guide people through that. I mean, they didn't just say, there's Zoom or Teams, there you go. No, they were taught how to use it. They were shown how to use it. Somebody helped them through the process. So sometimes you start the change and you enable the change, and other times you got to walk with them through that change and hold their hands. But there's a lot of value in that, because when somebody gets on the other side of the river safely, I mean, the amount of gratitude and happiness and it's just immense. So that's very important that's a big value add. And you can see, I'm not talking about product. I'm not talking about financial planning. I'm not talking about, these are things that we can build into our practices and into our processes to really add value. And this is the kind of stuff that people are willing to pay for, because we make their lives better. And then obviously, this I think goes with decision making, is saving them from making a mistake. But often there's so much value in making a mistake for somebody as well that, we don't want to let them make these big, like life-changing mistakes that they will never recover from. But often, it's also not a bad thing to make a mistake, because that's the quickest that you learn. So so those are some ways. What are some of the lessons that I learned? And this is definitely, I mean, I see this with other advisors. I experience this, is that clients are more than willing to pay. They are, what is important to them is changing, but also there is a huge chunk of the population who is not changing, and they still expect, if you phone, that you're going to come and look at their portfolio and want to update and upgrade and all of that. I laughed. I was enticed in the week by a company to upgrade my credit card. to upgrade my bank. Sorry, it wasn't my credit card. It was my bank. I need to upgrade my bank and go to their bank. So yeah. Anyway, so they are definitely more than willing to pay. And not only for financial planning, they will pay for a lot of other stuff and services that we can do for them. One of the biggest lessons that I learned was that you've got to be able to provide that fee in the first meeting if they ask you about it. You know, and there's two schools of thoughts. I had more success when I was able to say, listen, only an indication. It wasn't a clear cut. This is going to cost you about 5 or 3 or 10 or whatever the case was. To give them and to set an expectation, and be sure to give a big enough expectation so that if you come in better with the actual estimate that it's better. But other people would say, listen, I first need to go and talk to my team and find out whether this is you somebody that we want to take on, if you're a good fit for us, because it's not only me and you, it's also you need to get along with my entire team, and my team needs to get along with you. So there are different ways of really upping the value and how important it is and how exclusive it is and all that kind of stuff. But, providing a fee in that meeting, or whenever you're in a conversation, somebody asks you, what is this going to cost me? You got to be confident, and you got to say, this is what I think. I'll have to get back to you, but this is sort of what we're looking at. Why? Because let me answer that question. Because you can see the response on their face. You can see the way they react. And then you can take, well, is that too much? And you can already have that conversation. The problem is when you walk out of there and you then want to send a fee, they just don't get back to you, or, there's not a second chance to explain again the value and make the link between what it is that you charge and what it is that you're going to do for them and what they need. You can't just do what you did before and now just start charging fees. You've got to change something. There's got to either introduce something new. You've got to take something away. You've got to, I don't know. But you need to make a change in your business. You can't do things that you did for free and then suddenly now I want to charge for it and then use RDR as an excuse. So that's not going to work. Make sure you understand completely what the client is looking for. This is very, very important. You're really getting to know. And this is standard. I mean, this has always been the case. That's what I say. This whole thing about coaching is if you were really doing a good job, when you did get to what are you really after? What is it that you want to do? What is it that you want to achieve? How does life look when you are successful? What is it? So we've been doing that for years. It's just, I think we're getting, we're busy learning and seeing how we can ask better questions and get better answers and more clarity around it. So we're really honing that skill, but I don't think that's something completely new to be honest. But yeah, it's just you've got to really understand somebody if you want to go this fee route. And then everything's got to be matched to your process and your value proposition. That's very important. So there's got to be alignment. You've got to be clear to say, well, this is the amount of value that we add, and therefore this is the price I charge. And you know that you shouldn't confuse the two with each other. And there's a third thing that you shouldn't confuse it with, and I'll talk about that in a second. And it's more about listening than it is about talking. It's really about asking great questions. That is really the thing, and that is a skill. And you can read books, you can watch videos, and I've done that. I've listened to podcasts. I've done a lot of work to get to how do we ask questions. And unless you go sit in front of a client and you start asking questions and listening and really listening and making sure that you understand, that's where the tacky hits the road. And that's what you really need to be doing. We need to just start asking these better questions. And then I think the biggest thing is to manage expectations. It's always been a thing. It's nothing new. But now it becomes even more and more important, because remember, if somebody buys a policy from you and you get paid via commission, they don't see it really as their money, although it is. We all know it is. But if they paid you a fee, there's a different expectation. They see that money going out of their bank account and into yours, and there's a different set of expectations. So managing those expectations are really, really crucial. And then efficiency, because now there's a fixed fee. This isn't because the policy is 1,000 Rand, this is the commission, or this policy is 500 Rand, or because usually the work stays the same, right? So whether you're doing 1,000 Rand policy or 10,000 Rand policy, the work is basically the same. But you get paid so much more for the bigger policy than the smaller one. And so when it comes to charging fees, now business, and you see how this relates more back to building a business on solid business principles, because efficiency is when you make money. With commission, there can be a lot of inefficiencies in your system or in your process. But with this is very, very crucial. All right, so if I had to implement fees today, which I did back in 2015, I started charging fees. I spent a lot of time with a couple of advisors that've been charging fees for years. Learned a lot from them. Really had a few clients that said to me that was the best experience, the best thing. They love paying the fee rather than anything else. They feel that they get more value. It's a different conversation. But yeah, my problem was I was crap at prospecting and I didn't have a line of clients outside my door, which is a lot of people's challenge. And this is why I'm saying, going to a fee-based or a fee-only model because you may be battling to get business is not going to solve your problem. It's like going onto social media and thinking you're making a post and you're getting some leads in your inbox. It just doesn't work that way. This is still a long-term game. So you've got to have a plan if you want to move over to this. When you're starting from scratch, if you listen to somebody like Louis van der Merwe that was on the show in episode 49, we had a very nice discussion and he started young, going into this whole fee thing and, building a business in a bit of a different way. Why? Because he could. I look at a young Russell Ho doing the same thing. I look at, guys like Brendan Dunn and Ryan and people like that who are really getting, into these things like and I would say at a young age when they don't have a lot of things on their plate yet. They have the ability to do that. And that's a very big privileged position to be in. So what would I do differently? Okay, or if I had to implement fees today? Well, there's a few things. There's a couple of things I'm not going to share with you simply because I think I'm going to open a can of worms. But I'll talk about that maybe in some other episode. What I do want to say is I am going to talk about in another episode about value pricing. So how do we price based on value? There's going to be another episode. But for me, if I had an existing practice today, I would just focus on charging new clients fees. So I wouldn't bother with my existing clients. I would just say, well, new clients, but I would obviously have all my ducks in a row. Everything will be there. And then saying, well, this is my new proposition for new clients. Existing clients are used to the way that you're working. And it's easier to do business with an existing client than a new client. And it's cheaper to acquire them. It will always be the rule. But the problem is with the existing is that they're so into this is how this machine works. If you now come and change it, you're going to spend a lot of time managing expectations, trying to convince people and doing things like that. But with new clients, you can over time start introducing fees. So every time you bring in a new client, you tell them you're fee-based. Existing clients, you leave them as they are. So that's sort of the first thing that I would do because I tried to convert existing clients as well. It doesn't work. With existing clients, what I would do is start introducing some service fees over time. So things like, if you want us to change certain things, update information with companies or do things like that. And one could now go and debate, is commission not paying you to keep these things updated? But how many policies are on your code that you don't earn a single cent on? So I'm not talking about where you're getting an ongoing advice fee or you do get ACIs or anything like that. This is more for you bring on clients. They've got products with many different providers. You need to look after those, but you don't earn a single cent of that. In that case, you need to tell clients that, when we make changes to these policies, there's going to be a service fee. And this is something that somebody told me one day that I think was brilliant. I don't know. I haven't tried it yet. But to say, listen, you know what? You can phone Sanlam or Old Mutual or Liberty or Momentum or Discovery, whoever, and do the changes. Or we can do it for you. But then we're providing a service and we charge for that service. But it's the client's choice. So you give them the choice. And often they say, no, please, you do it for me, because who wants to hang on to a call center number and try and fix stuff? Anyway, so the one big sort of issue that I make is that I confuse the way that I got paid with the price or the value of what it is that I was doing. So I won't do that again, definitely not. Yeah, we need to make a distinction. So you can get paid via commission, but we still need to sort of explain and position the value that we have or that we create and what the price is for that. Because in that way we start educating clients, we start making them aware of what they are actually getting. And then they can choose, do they pay you a fee, do they pay you commission, do they pay assets on it, whatever it may be. But there is a clear distinction between payment for your services and what you charge for those services and what they are worth. So we definitely need to do that. And then I'll definitely make it more simple. I had a whole 7-step kind of process, and I had documents that slotted into each of those processes. I will make that a lot simpler. I will focus a lot more on the experience than on the compliance, because I was still in that day, I mean, I was still stupid. So I was just focusing on the compliance, and all of this must be there, and this is what everybody wants. But over time, I've learned that, the client doesn't care about those things. Are they important? Oh, absolutely, because whenever something goes wrong, then the client's going to decide, no, like money has no friends or family. So then they will take you on probably. So then you need to have all your things in place. But what we put the client through when they do business, we can make that simple and shorter and more, and then keep a lot of stuff that we've done to show the work that we've done, before we gave how did we actually end up with our advice? And then you just got to make sure that you actually did disclose the most important information to the client. I think we've been led to believe that you need to go through every single line in a document and every single thing in a quote and every single thing. Then again, balance, because the client, we lose them, we overwhelm them. We talk about things to them that they've got no clue what it is about. So that thing is definitely one big step that I'll take, is to keep it simple. And then I'll provide options of how you can pay, So this is the value, and this is where fee-based comes from. Because fee-based is just like, there is a fee, there is a value, but you can pay via the product commission, or you can pay a fee, or you can pay a combination of the two. You can sign a retainer. So then there's different payment options, and that's the kind of options that I would have. So when I did this, it was pretty much it's either this or it's this. So there were options. You can still do the commission thing, or you could do the fee thing. But I really spoke to the client about the commission option, that's still there. So it was more focused on just the fees, because and this is a big mistake that I made in terms of this, is that I tried to distinguish myself from my competition through the way I charged, or through the way that you pay me. And you can't. That is not a way to distinguish any business. You can't distinguish yourself, in your business model. Yes, what you could do is, in a particular industry, for example, your business model could make you more profitable, but that is not what distinguishes you from your competition. That just means that's the reason maybe you make more or less money. It doesn't matter. But what you need to do is all the other things that I spoke about. If you look at all the ways that you can create value, that is how you distinguish yourself. It is what you do. It is why you do it. Those things are what distinguishes you. It is not the way that you get paid. Definitely not. It is the value you add, and that is where you can make a significant difference. So those are kind of the 6 things that I would do differently if I had to implement fees today. I don't know. It's been very quiet in the comments. I didn't have time to put up any sort of notices to say, please, share your ideas. I see we've got Bruce Cameron here on LinkedIn, and Bryn, Renata, I see Neil here, so let's see what Neil says. In my opinion, one of the biggest problems is the product providers and their upfront commission structures to lure advisors into product sales and replacements. They should move to as and when fees with an ongoing advice fee for servicing the policy while the client needs it. Yes, and there will be different schools of thoughts there, Neil. It's also, again, when you start off, and that's where you start off, it's very hard to make a living without those upfront commissions. So that's the problem, and that's why the beast keeps on feeding itself, sort of in that sense. And there's nothing wrong with that per se, because I think there's still clients out there who that's what they want. It's all they want. Just give me a life policy. Just give me an investment. They are not concerned about all this bigger stuff. Not everybody ever gets there to say, oh, I need to find myself, and I need to figure out myself, and I need to sort of sort out my life and have an answer to every single question that I ask myself. So it'll very much depend on the client as well. There's a lot of sort of responsibility with the client as well, that they need to know what they're looking for. They may not know exactly, but they need to know that they're looking for something different from that point of view. So taken there, what you're saying. And this is the thing, guys. I want to be very clear about this. And I was this, though, in 2015, 2016, even 2014. I was very much on, it's about financial planning, and there's a difference between a broker and an advisor and a planner. And there is, it's in their behavior. It's what they focus on, is what distinguishes and what puts you in one of those boxes. But each one of them have got a very particular type of client that's exactly what they want. And that's exactly what they need. They don't need anything else. So there's nothing wrong with that approach. I think we need to be very concerned about, like, how do I want to build my business, and what is it that I want to stand for, and what is it, what are the, like, what are the kind of clients that I would love to deal with, and what can I do for them? Because then you're going to build a brilliant business, and we don't need to worry about what the guy next door is doing, or the lady next door, or anything like that. So definitely an important discussion to be had. But I'm also, I think I need to do a better job of making people aware that there's much more to this than just implementing a product and calling yourself a financial advisor. But you choose an avenue of what it is that you want to do. It's the same in the police force. You can be a police officer, you can be a detective, you can become a captain, you can be in the Hawks, you can be in different places, and it depends on what works for you, and everybody's got their important role that they fulfill. All right. So let's see. Good morning, Dirk. Nice to see you here. Eden, let's see what he says. I'm pleased our officers left such a lasting impression. On a more serious note, price is seldom a proxy for value. As you correctly mentioned, paying less isn't necessarily optimal. Yes. Thanks, Eden. I didn't know you were here in the thing. But yeah, I must say it was really an awesome experience. Let's see. Razan says, clients want choice. It's important to remember that you can choose your clients too. It's the value of the fit that determines the fee. Absolutely, because one person is going to see all your value, and I've spoken about this before as well. The next person is not going to see your value. They tick all the other boxes, but they just can't see the value of somebody doing something for them. For example, they would rather do it themselves. There's nothing that we can do about that. Bruce says another one, preventing shopping remorse. Most people need confirmation, even if they go direct, which includes education and a balanced approach. Yes, absolutely. That is so valuable. And this is one of the things, I think it was Louis in episode 49 that said, often there's an opportunity here to give once-off advice. It's not to say that because we've been taught and over the years we've come to believe that we need to have long-lasting relationships with every single client, or an ongoing relationship rather. And, there's a lot of people who just want a professional to tell them like yes or no, help them make that decision. That's why I said there's decision-making that brings value. And then you take it from there. So definitely. Carol, understanding different personality types is a good skill to acquire for both personal and business relationships. Yes, absolutely. So back in my day, we had social styles, and there's all the strength stuff, and there's Enneagram, and all kinds of, hey, Ryan, are you? Yeah, most definitely a privilege to start from scratch. Yes, absolutely. With regards to go charging fees. And yeah, I mean, I must say, you're a great bunch of guys there, Ryan. And yeah, you should just stick to your guns. Let's see. So Dirk is saying, there's no link between commission paid and value. In most cases, clients are not told how much the commission is. Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying. So in the other episodes where we spoke about the fee models and those things, I actually spoke about that there is no direct link between the amount of money you earn and the value that you added. And that's sort of also what I'm saying. If you take everything out of out, and you just focus on if I just focus on, my mind just left me. If I just focus on the work that I did, okay, then a 500 Rand policy takes me the same amount of time, for example, to implement as a 5,000 Rand policy. So that's why, and I agree with you, there is no link between what you get paid and what you did. And that's the one thing that fees do, where you can say, oh, for this, it's going to be this much, for that, it's going to be that much. You can also then make a distinction between who's working with your stuff. So if you have a more junior advisor, there's a different fee. If it's admin people working, it's a different fee. If it's, the most experienced, most qualified person in the room, it's going to be the most expensive, So there's no equation when we talk about commission that you can actually filter those kind of things in. So people don't have a choice to work with somebody who's more junior, or somebody, or maybe say, oh, I actually only need this, or whatever the case may be. Alrighty, so let's see. Russell, 100% agree at Razan. I've learned over time that it's okay if there's clients whom don't hire you because they don't want to pay your fee, because they're not the right clients for you. Yes, and you're very clear about how you want to build your business and what is important to you. And it's not wrong, because now there's some other advisor who's going to get a client, and that's their perfect fit. So this is a whole big ecosystem. So fantastic. Alrighty, guys. So lekker. Thank you very much. I'm going to call it a morning. I've got a full day ahead. I hope you've also got a full day and that you're busy and that it's going well with you. Thank you very much for all the support. I deeply appreciate it. And I want to wish you a fantastic rest of the week. I'll see you on Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. So don't forget, and we'll see you here with Michelle Hoskins. And let's enjoy an afternoon together. So thank you very much. Have a good one. Go have a coffee. I'll see you soon. Cheers. Bye-bye.